Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Guided Mistakes. I am your host, Jenna Allen, and today we have a very special guest, Russell Horrocks. We are going to talk about diving into your truth and just stepping back into your truth. And he actually also, he helps people find their path. So I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. Welcome, Russell.
Hey, thank you, Jenna, and hello, everybody. My name is Russell Horrocks, and what I do is I help people uncover their truths and step into their life path or what's their personal mission here in life while they're on Earth, and uncovering who are you here to be and what are you here to receive and enjoy in life. And going through that process is uncovering what is true to you about you and who you're here to be in life.
I love that so much. So how did you get into all this? Like what was your motivation?
Well, my initial motivation was being somebody who also needed that for myself. Uh, Many different, we'll say, speakers or teachers in personal development, they're always talking about you need to find your purpose, need to find your path. And then they would leave me hanging in my own mind saying, well, how do I do that? And so for years, I went through various, we'll say, trainings or healing modalities, different processes, reading tons of books, bunch of different podcasts, events, and just trying to figure out what is my niche or how do I go down this path of actually uncovering this for myself. And in the uncovering, it was revealed to me as I did my work is like, oh, you're actually somebody here who's to help other people do this for themselves. And you had to jump through all the hoops to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that. So what does it mean for us to dive into our truth?
Yeah. So truth, it's any way you look today, whether you're looking many different places in media and whatnot, like it's a word that's thrown around, and a lot of people either A, don't understand it, or B, have their own very, we'll say, one view of what is truth. But getting into our truth is getting into what's the truth about me, my life, my experiences, and revisiting things that maybe when they happened, we didn't actually experience it the way that they happened due to our age or other, we'll say, things going on in the environment at the time. And we go back and find the actual truth of what happened in maybe that moment. And then it's identifying what's the actual truth of what happened versus what we misunderstood or took in at the time.
Wow.
So it's coming into a space of personal responsibility, personal ownership, and being able to say this is what it was and it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that there's a lot of stigma around like shame of being ashamed of our mistakes and not like I know for me in the past I used to have a very victim mentality and I never used to take accountability for at least until the last couple years of my life, but I remember feeling like either stubborn or just feeling like this is not something I'm ready to be accountable for. But do you find that that's common in people, like that stigma about around being ashamed of like making mistakes?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely a stigma, and a lot of that is taught externally to us. And we take the stigma and say, well, whether whoever you are in life, it might be like, well, I'm a guy or I'm this, I'm that. And there's these rules that are programmed into us by society saying, people don't do this, this, or this. And if you do, you are something, whatever it may be. And we get that programmed in the back of our mind. And then we say, well, I can't say that I feel this way or this happened. Or if I do share this, I'm afraid of what might happen. And it keeps a lot of people really stuck in this happened, it's my fault, something's wrong with me, or I deserved it. And then not knowing what to do with it because they are afraid to actually say, hey, I need help. And I don't know where to go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
what can we do as a society to like where would someone start with like holding them self accountable? Like if someone came to you and like was like, hey, like, I've been holding all this stuff in, or there's a lot of stuff that I need to get off my chest, or like, how would someone go about that if they're really scared, but like how would they get started on like just diving into their true authenticity?
Ooh, well, getting started, it's partially on the person to start stepping into their life and saying, where do I find resources or people or
Yeah.
even information to start bringing me into thinking this way? And then after that, it's stepping in and finding somebody who you're meant to meet.
Yeah.
And you might not know who that is in the beginning, or it might be maybe you have a friend who's been doing their own interpersonal work. You could start there. It doesn't have to be 100% dive in, but it's baby steps.
Yeah.
For myself, I started by finding a podcast and going to an event. And then because I went to that event, I met one person who introduced me to one training, which was like the snowball effect.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been about 8 years now of diving down the rabbit hole.
Wow. Wow.
So it's, and a lot of that too, a lot of, we'll say what's out there in the holistic market, uh, it's more or less designed to be a band-aid or a tool to make you feel better just in the moment. And a lot of them keep you stuck using a band-aid time and time again. And there comes a point where you're like, well, the band-aids aren't working anymore. How do I move forward and not need the band-aids?
Yeah.
And then that's when you find somebody like me
Yeah.
or other people I've worked with, to where they help you peel back the layers day by day, however long it might take. And you will start, I'm going to say letting go, but it's not really letting go. It's taking ownership of what you've experienced in life and coming to the truth of what you experienced, and then coming to a space of an action of what am I going to go do about it now? And a lot of, we'll say, teachers or coaching or healing modalities, they're really good at step one, which is awareness. And you can be aware all day, but if you're not taking a step or an action to do something about it,
Yeah.
not just an action, but an aligned action that's like, this is who I am and this is why I'm doing it for me, we can still just be stuck in I am aware.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it takes a lot of like courage and like a lot of patience and just like a lot of strength to put yourself in the position to actually like make those changes, right? Like I know
Yeah.
for me, I would not be where I am without therapy, So
Mhm.
like I've had to uncover some very, very painful truths about people in my past or things that have happened to me. And but I now, like I know for me, and I'm kind of curious how you feel about this, but like I feel way more free. I
Oh,
don't like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the age old saying of the truth is going to set you free.
Mhm.
So, and just to relate to that too, like well, I'll back it up. So growing up, I had a little bit of a chaotic upbringing. And then when I was 13 to 17, my mom, she got cancer and I watched her go down chemo route and then passed away when I was 17. And, I was a kid with really no support. And I just stuck it all down really deep. And I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. And it's like, I was not.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that came out years down. Thank you. It came out years down the road.
Yeah.
And then it was time for me to deal with it. And we'll say round one, I did more of the band-aids that made me feel good. And I was like, oh, I'm good. And they stuck for a while. And once I started using all the band-aids, everything started to seem to work. Like I ended up getting my degree done. I got into what I thought was like the relationship of a lifetime, and everything seemed to be going up and up and up. And it was. And come 2019, end of 2019, 2020, when COVID hit, I also got sick at that same time. And for 7, 8 months, I was trying to figure out what was going on with me. And it turned into uh, emergency open heart surgery, essentially, 7 months later. And I was 29,
Wow.
which, one, it was amazing and magical how everything unfolded.
Yeah.
I'm still here and I'm
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah.
So happy for that.
Yeah, no,
But
like wow.
yeah, and coming out of that, like it was almost like I took off another pair of glasses and life was different.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just, oh, I'm trying to make a lot of money and do this and this and this. It was really like, well, shoot, I almost died. And then all the band aids fell off and then they didn't work anymore. So I was like, all the things I thought I addressed came back. And from there, you know, I stepped into therapy for a little while and it helped. But my therapist was really good at just saying, well, what about this? And I'd say, no, that there's nothing there. And they would just go, okay. You know, they didn't actually push me the way I needed. And then when I stepped into what I've done now and what I work in, which is sacred geometry,
Yeah.
it flipped everything on its end and said, we're not going to do the tools anymore. And we're going to address everything. And the, we'll say, canvas of addressing everything is going to show up in your day-to-day life. And that's where we'll start. And it starts by identifying what triggers me, why is it triggering me, and the truth is whatever's triggering you in front of you, it's poking a button inside of something that happened in the past. It's not actually this person in front of me is doing this to me.
Yeah.
It's literally like holding a mirror up and saying, you need to look at this and it's time,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That well, your story is very inspiring and like I'm really glad you're here and
Yeah.
you definitely have a purpose, cuz you're doing what you do. So I
Yeah.
respect that. I mean, and I'm sorry that you've gone through what you have,
Oh,
we all
thank
have a
you.
story. I definitely feel like for me, I mean, I kind of have a mixed feeling about it. I feel like there's certain things that are definitely like more harder than others in the sense of like that whole saying where it says what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. I don't know if I I can see where some people kind of have an argument about that because I mean sometimes it doesn't make us stronger. Sometimes we go through
Hmm.
some really bad stuff and we don't know how to get out of it. But I know for certain things that have happened in my life, they have actually made me more wiser. I don't know if
Hmm.
stronger is the right word. I would say wiser. Like things
Yeah.
make us wiser as we learn.
Yeah. And what I would say to that too is just, it's not just that it made me wiser or it made me stronger. For me, it also humbled me and brought me, I'll say, even deeper into life
Yeah.
and questioning, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And what do I want to enjoy in life? And for me, I was on a path prior to that where I worked for a government contractor and working crazy hours, making decent money, you know. And I came back and I was like, ooh, this is actually not the environment for me anymore.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get there. And seemingly it felt like life was all falling apart. And the way life kind of works is things fall apart before they get better. And sometimes you got to go way down before you can go way back up.
Yep.
And the trick is coming into the space of being like, I don't actually need to know why this is happening. It's just, I know this is happening for a purpose and a reason. And it's up to me to have the, we'll say, interpretation of what I'm experiencing. And either A, I can choose to enjoy certain things about it, or I can sit there and be, we'll say, in resistance to what's happening.
Yeah.
And either way, it's happening.
Yeah.
And it's being able to recognize, who am I being in this moment? And what am I going to enjoy? And then taking your actions. And for me, the things that have been destructive in life are actually the pieces of me that I like the most now.
Wow.
So the way I'll put it too is once you get down into your truth, which is diving into, in sacred geometry, we call it your root wound,
Yeah.
which is all the bits and pieces that maybe still have an emotional attachment to them, and addressing them. As you start getting into that, down at the bottom of each one of these experiences that we'll say are unresolved, there's a gift or a truth or a lesson that's sitting there for you. And then once you hit the bottom, it integrates into you and becomes part of, we'll say, your superpower in life. And it starts to reveal to you, who are you here to be, and how can you support and help others.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful. It's so true though. Like I feel like it's sometimes like we go through things and we're like, "Oh, well, it sucks right now, but this could also be my greatest tool down the road."
Mhm.
So I'm kind of curious, like how has this career like transformed your life and others? Like have you seen like transformation in other people as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so other people I brought into here as well, they're like, oh my gosh, dude, like I see it now,
Yeah.
in a sense, to
Yeah.
where they're like, before, this and this and this and this would happen in life, and I would get maybe really angry or really stressed out or full of anxiety. And now when similar things show up, I just look at them and I'm like, oh, hi. It's more of in a space of a notice and being able to move through it with maybe more of a ease and grace, instead of stepping into a mode where it just completely derails your whole day, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And even my own personal experience, things that maybe in the past would have taken me out for a day or maybe a couple days where I'd be very unhappy about it.
Yeah.
Now it might be, 10, 20 minutes. It might be nothing. It might just be just really quick. You're like, okay, I see what's going on. There's nothing I can do about it. That's okay. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And it becomes a very quick response, instead of getting into a space of, we'll say, uh, turning it into a negative
Yeah.
and then using it against ourselves or against others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. It's so cool when you can see other people's transformation. Like I love that, right? Cuz like as for me as a life coach too, like I've seen clients and people grow just from like my help, and it's very rewarding when you see people like transform their life. Like it's just really cool. So that's really
Hmm.
awesome. So what has been your biggest lesson throughout this whole process?
Mm. Well, I'm going to say it this way, and it's fun for me, but the biggest lesson in it is really that I know nothing. So, a big premise of, we'll say, our own inner emotional struggles in life is coming from our own knowing, or coming from, this is what I know is going to happen or should happen or I want to happen. And when we come from a place of knowing, when we step into any arena, if it doesn't go the way we want, we typically weaponize that against ourselves or against others. And it becomes very unhelpful, toxic, even at
Oh,
times, to
yeah.
where when you're stepping into a place of not knowing and coming from a place of, this is what I desire, and then this is who I want to be, what I want to enjoy, and then if it all went the way I want it, what would it be? And just leave it at that. Either you're going to get exactly what you want or something better, or you're going to get something that you're required to experience in life, which is really a gift to allow you to open up into and become more of who you're here to be.
I love that. That is so true. That is so true. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know, I totally relate to everything you just said because there's been times in my life in the past where I'm like, literally, if something does not go as planned, I just like, it makes me question things, right? Like, I've gotten better at that obviously now,
Yeah.
but like in the past, I was just like, this didn't go as planned. Like, why isn't this working? So yeah, like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah, that is a very powerful lesson. Absolutely.
Hmm.
So for
Yeah.
people,
And
oh, sorry.
yeah. And it really comes from a place of dropping control.
Yeah.
Is we all like to have our sense of control in life. And the truth is we can really only be in control of ourselves.
Yeah.
And for the most part, we don't even really have to do that when it comes to our own emotionals and what's going on inside. It's dropping the control is actually the key to getting into where you want to be and who you want to be,
Yeah.
because it is also tied to that knowing
Mm-hmm.
of this is what I know, but you only know from what you've experienced in the past. And when you're living from this is what I know, you're blocking yourself from opening up into what's available to you if you would just make the leap or jump over the wall or whatever way you want to look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really good perspective, and I feel like I think that that's part of the reason why I have a hard time with being
Mm.
stagnant, that's the right word, right? Because it's like I've had to learn to be open-minded as well, because I know
Yeah.
that when you're open-minded, you get more opportunities in life, and you learn new things, right? So
Hmm.
sometimes it's important for us to like step outside our comfort zone and be like, okay, like but what else could I learn, you know?
Right.
So yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah. And that, and like the truth of it is you're never really truly stagnant. It might feel that way. Uh, my experience is that most of society, at least here in the US, programs us to be going a million miles an hour. And then you don't take those moments to slow down, take a breath, maybe give yourself what you need.
Yeah.
And at a certain point where you hit the wall, or life throws you a curveball, and then maybe you went from a million to zero. When you hit that zero, a lot of us don't know what to do. And then we again flip it on ourselves of, oh, nothing's happening, it needs to be going quicker, or like getting into the space of like I should be somewhere else but I'm not.
Yeah.
And the truth is like, well, sometimes you do need to slow down, you do need to
Yeah.
take the break,
Yeah.
and sometimes life just hands you that break, and it's getting into the space of again enjoying it
Yeah.
and being able to recognize it for what it is.
Yeah.
And also with the open-mindedness, it's uh, when you're open, yes, the opportunities come to you, and it's also the availability becomes wider and wider and wider as you step into new experiences and meet new people and whatnot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a really cool perspective. I really like
Mhm.
that actually.
Yeah.
So for people that want to work with you, where can they find you?
Over on Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
Those Facebook's my number one that I use.
Okay.
And yeah, just shoot me a message on there and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Perfect. Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. I feel like a
Yeah,
lot of people are
likewise.
going to benefit from this too. Like that's so great. And I'm always preaching like own your truth, step into your truth.
Hmm.
So this is great. Like a lot of everything you said, I'm like, yep, yep, I
Yeah.
totally feel that. So no, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah, and I'll just add this in there too, which is the ultimate truth of maybe anybody who's seeking personal development or working on themselves. A lot of the times, we'll say other modalities or teachings or whatnot program us to think that there's something wrong with us, or we need fixing, or we're broken, and that can get embedded in the back of our mind and keep us stuck.
yeah,
And so for anybody out there that maybe feels that way, like the truth of it is you're not broken.
yeah,
There's nothing wrong with you. And where you're at in life is exactly where you need to be at this time.
yeah,
And if you
absolutely.
feel like you're stuck, you're not stuck, and it's not forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a great way to end it too. I think
Yeah.
I love that. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for coming on
Oh, you're
here.
welcome. Yeah, thank you for having me.
There we go. Okay.